New table. Do I need to project? Exchange, sorry. No.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it doesn't take too long.
Well, keep
To order. All right, public hearing and budget adoption meeting. First thing is the agenda review. Are there any comments or changes to the agenda?
A couple of things, good, yeah, so, while, I'm happy to discuss the status of union agreements in our executive session this evening, I do want to push off approval of both the Norwich teachers and the Norwich educational assistant, agreements. We typically, the order of things typically, we would have the other, parties ratify first. And just from a timing perspective, they haven't had the opportunity to do that yet, so it wouldn't make sense for us to approve it tonight, so I would just propose that we move those to the next Norwich regularly scheduled board meeting. As I said before, I'm happy to talk about the details of the agreements in executive session if the board desired.
So we'll remove E and F from the.
You wanna move them, or you just wanna say move to February, whatever it is.
I would just remove them from tonight,
Okay.
and then we can always put them on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay. Any other items? I think Lily's log, is she dialed in?
She is. Yeah, she's on.
She's on, okay. All right, public comment? Is there any comments from the public? Is there anyone on?
We have one guest online.
All right, raise your hand if you have any comments online. Otherwise, we don't hear any. We will move into our 2025-2026 budget hearing.
Who is on, oh, I think it's Red, right? Is it Red?
Oh, that's right, yeah, coaching obligation this evening.
Um, I'm wondering if I should go online in order to just go through it all, if it's other than that. Did I do that?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, I see Lily, Robin, and
Okay. I'm gonna do
that's it from.
that. Launch.
Just don't connect the audio though.
No. Really. No worries. All right, so I'm not gonna project, because we've done handouts for everybody here in the room. And or who's on the board docs, okay? So much as we've done in the past, just letting everybody know who's involved, the administration and building of the budgets. There's a lot of people involved who are not listed here. But these are the folks who are involved in the building of the budget, who are in charge of different departmental areas and or the schools and other operations. Also lists our school board members. On the committee with us, was Neil Odell and Garrett, right, on that committee, yes, I did. And so that's that slide. Second slide. We just like to remind people the reasons we're here for the Marion Cross School and what their community means to them and what the mission is for the students here at Marion Cross School. We do a quick review of the Norwich budget guidelines. This is not a comprehensive copy. This is slide 3. This is not a comprehensive copy of the entire Norwich budget guideline document. If you'd like to review that, please go to the September Norwich board meeting and you can view it in its entirety. This is just the highlights of that letter that is brought to the board after we do what we call a quick model. A quick model takes last year's information, projects it forward with what we know to be true for contractual obligations at that point in time. It also makes some certain general assumptions, usually based on CPI, consumer price index at the point in time we build it, which is August, so it'll be July CPI. We did that this past year, and it had come out that it would project an increase of just over 202,000 or 3.10%. After further discussion with the school board and the budget committee, the school board recommended to try to keep the total budget increase between 1.5% and 2%. That would be, and a K through 6 operating budget increase exclusive of any labor contract settlements of 0%. And that's because when we looked at the quick model build, it's broken into 2 different pieces, actually 3 different pieces. And so we were hoping that we could keep name-based operations up above at a 0, and then operational costs that we don't have full control over at between 1.5% and 2%. So this is a review that the total budget, for the operating budget, it reflects the K6 operating budget up top. Then it shows SAU expenses, then it shows special ed out of district, transportation, capital expense, and debt service. We knew the debt service was gonna go up because one of our payments was starting from one of our projects that hadn't been on before. So the board also wanted to be mindful, everybody to be mindful of some of the following factors that were due to many of the different challenges at the state of Vermont right now, at the Agency of Education, and throughout Vermont with everything else that's going on. So they were talking early in August about the reintroduction of excess spending penalty. We since found out that that is not, we are not subject to that because of our interstate agreement. They are also looking at the implementation of new student weights. The Dresden assessment to Norwich was a concern. We had an expected increase in the CLA, although that's not come to bear yet. The Commission on the Future of Public Education was still working through their recommendations, and the property and income yield numbers in August have not been determined. They still haven't been fully determined, right? We're just working with numbers that came out on December 1st. Okay, slide 4. We always, after we start with the quick model in August, we look at projected enrollment, and we look at that historically on October 1st. We take the numbers we know to be true, which is you don't count the grades, the second column in where it says actual 24-25, and we look at those numbers as of October 1. We then take those numbers and we push them forward using what's called a cohort survival method, and we average it over the past 5 years. So if you look all the way to the right of the chart over here, you'll see where it says K to 1, we normally gain 4 kids. 1 to 2, we lose 1. 2 to 3, we gain 1. Okay, so on and so on and so on. So as we take our numbers, like we took the 31 actual in kindy and we pushed it forward for 25, 26 into grade 1, and we added those 4 students. So we ended up with 35. Then as we push that class forward in 26, 27, we take 1 away. So every year we update that based on historical information for the last 5 years. That's what we call cohort survival method. So projecting for next year, interestingly enough, comes out in the exact same number as what we have right now. So that made our job a little bit easier. So we were projecting not 4 drops in students or gains in students. There was earlier discussion about potential class sizes. Because of some of the different dynamics that may go on between now and next year, we chose to take that off of our slide. If you want to look at that, you can go back to the presentation in December. Okay, then after we look at student count, then we send to the principal an overview of the staff that we have at the moment in time in like November for this past year in 24. At that point, excuse me, the principal working with his staff decides what he thinks is going to change year over year. And so here are some of the changes that came out from those discussions. We had a regular ed FTE that we were carrying, which has been redirected to be like a district substitute or a float for folks who are going out on long-term leave. When folks go out on maternity leave or go out on any kind of other long-term medical leave, we normally will have to hire in another person from outside. It was decided to redirect that 1.0 FTE right now because we were not needing it either for an additional classroom over to the district substitute line. Sean, please feel free to jump in if you want to add anything, okay? Also, we had an FTE that was sitting in regular ed assistance, which is really the bulk of the day is being spent in the special education realm. So we've moved that FTE to the special education realm. We also have an increased need year over year in the English second language specialist position. I believe there's gonna be a discussion tonight as well. So we've increased that in our FTE projection. And then if you look down to special ed assistant, you'll see where that FTE transferred in from up above. And then there were some changes in hours for the special education aides that we had. So that netted out to a 0.67 increase. At the end of the day, year over year, we would be down 0.06 cents. Okay, and then moving on to significant changes. I will inform the board that I have not as yet done your budget book that we normally would print and post because we're waiting for the numbers to be ratified. We sent in our numbers and ratified today with our additional comments. They're still not 100% right, but they're very close. So we're waiting for that information to come out because that is a very important piece of how we project tax rate. So once we have all that information, we'll put your budget book together and we'll get it printed and I'll post it. As of now, however, what you would see on the significant changes in the budget book would be as follows. We have $159,000 in salary changes, increases. Some of those are due to the following situations. The regular ed teacher 1.0 decrease, however, that FTE and the associated costs at that point in time of 50,000 were moved down to the substitute line in the budget. The 0.93 decrease in regular ed assistance at 29,000 was moved down to special ed. And then with some of the FTE and categorical level changes, because remember we have the INEAs, which are the intensive special needs aides. They're on a different tier than the regular special ed aides. With some of the changes in those assignments, we have a total increase. The 0.67 FTE and those changes are an increase in those lines of 48,000. We have a 0.20 increase in ESOL, which is showing a $20,000 increase. And then overall, the FTEs are decreasing by 0.06, as mentioned before. Non-union wages have a 2% increase for administration and a 2.5% plus steps for support. I think you carry 2 support personnel in the non-union realm. It used to be 3, but 1 was moved into 2. I think that's right. Behavioral, the speech specialist, and then your administrative assistant. Yeah. Okay, so the medical insurance rate, along with election changes up and down throughout, and some of the FTE changes, the rate came in 11.9%. It resulted in an increase overall we had a lot of changes in health. So the increase you would think would be higher than that, and it would have been, but we had some people who were sitting on family plans that made election changes, okay? So it came in at a total of 27,491. The other payroll associated benefits costs are increasing 56,000. The SAU assessment has an increase of 66,520. That's coming off of the SAU budget, which you can go out to the board docs and look at the SAU budget, which is ratified in November for more information. We have changes at the SAU with carry forward and a project. We also have legal fee lines that were reduced by just over 9,000. The pre-K tuition is projecting an increase of 5,800. We've reached full capacity in our pre-K. And the vocational, as of the writing of this, had not been released, but I believe I have it as of this morning. The technology supplies are projecting a net decrease, but some of those expenditure costs have been recoded to purchase services. Because they're for online services for teaching and online services for district-wide at dollar amounts of 33,325 and 31,936. There are other changes in special ed lines, including a projected decrease for psych services, PT, OT, and testing, I believe, a reduction of 55,000. We have decreases in out-of-district tuition for the independent schools from 9 through 12 of just under 74,000. And we have an increase in the state public 9 through 12 of 113,000. So that's a shift, right, in assignment, most likely. And specialized transportation is decreasing by 20,000. As we're not sending to out-of-district schools, for our own students that we transport, we use our own transportation. Facilities maintenance service contracts are adjusted down by 17,232. Part of that has to do with the septic costs when we were pumping. And then the building improvements are adjusted down by almost 84,000, as we've done a lot of projects here in the last year and a half. And one we didn't even know we were gonna do, which is, what are we calling it? The shed. The compost palace, which is beautiful, you gotta go see it. That I think you just started using it. Tomorrow, they're breaking ground tomorrow. Transportation changes in regular ed are budgeted with an additional increase of 26,000 because we're trying to do a breakout of one of the routes. We're still trying to hire. If anybody wants to drive just the morning route, please call us. We'll get you in touch with the right people. And then the field trips are adjusted down a little bit by 8,000 as some of the things are being brought in-house. Dues, fees, and debt lines are increasing by 143, almost 144. We talked about that. That's the payment coming online. And then we had dues changes of 2,600. And so the debt service lines altogether are 141. And then transfer to food's been reduced by 8,000 due to the changes in coverage of free and reduced as we're being mandated to participate in National School Lunch Program. And the good news is we broke even last year. Something very hard to do when you participate, but we did that. So that's great news for the project. Okay, any questions on that slide before I go zooming forward? Okay. All right, slide 7. We're gonna look at 2 ways to look at a budget. We look at the first one, which is overview by function, okay? This is like by department, right? We have regular ed, we have technology, education and support, special ed, and then you have all your support services below in the 2000s. And so you can see over here that in regular education, we've gone down a little bit there. And then we've gone up a little bit in technology education. And that's because some of those expenses that were being charged for software in the classroom was recoded. And when it was recoded, it dropped from regular ed supply line to a technology service line. Okay, so those are a swap between those 2 sections. It will show as a larger percent increase in technology just because the technology budget is so much smaller than the regular education budget, okay? In special education, we talked about some of those increases. In guidance and health services, there's a decrease there. That's predominantly being driven by a change in election of health insurance. And then media, staff, library development is all pretty much static. Sorry, that's in red. It should be in black, 2.05%. School board and superintendent services, we talked about that. The SAU is coming in higher. School administration, part of that sits there is the HRA funding that we have to take care of because of the manner in which the health insurance in Vermont is structured, right? We pay for the first so many dollars. So we took that line, it was sitting at 90,000, we increased it to 100,000 because we've been trending higher than 90. So part of that is that, and the balance of that is changes in salaries and benefits. Buildings and grounds, maintenance and custodial, that is changes in health insurance. It's also changes in just our contracts that go up, 3, 4, 5% each year. Those are all the different contracts for like the elevators and the cleaning of, everything outside of here and just everything. You can look at that, if you go to the Norwich Budget Committee, we've got some of that information posted there. Transportation services overall is showing just a change of 290. That's because that includes the offset from us wanting to break out that route and do more money in the regular transportation, but it's offset by the savings in special ed transportation. And the savings also that came off of the field trips, right? Because those are all netted together as transportation. Building and site improvements, that's all netted together for both building and site. Site is down and building was steady. And then the debt service and food service transfer, we talked about with the debt service coming on and then the food service going down by $8,000. So that's one way to look at it. If you want to look at it by department, we're going to look at it by object or subject. This is what we're paying for, not where. As you can see, we have increases here showing in teacher salaries and other salaries. I will say at this point in time that as of now, I have added what I know to be true for the tentative agreements that are right now in, out to be voted on at both sections. So those changes have been integrated into this budget because we need to ratify it for the warning article. And so all of these first 3 lines take into consideration changes in that realm, which we'll discuss later, and the folks in those realms know what that is because they're discussing it amongst themselves. And then my friend over here, who's gonna be reporting, hopefully we TA tomorrow, we can know what those are, but, so no changes in retiree wages and benefits right now. Staff development has a slight change, and that's a change from what we spend through the administration. Purchase and professional technical services are up a little bit. The purchase property services are down a little bit, which we mentioned earlier. Other purchase services in the 500s, that's a very slight decline, and I think probably it had to do with monies that we set aside for like mailing machines, copiers, and all those types of things, custodial. The tuition overall netted out to an increase of 18,600, that's out of district. That's all tuition actually, out of district, as well as the vocational line not being known and the change in the pre-K. The supply lines overall are down. Property and equipment is down a little bit. Dues, fees, and debt is up, as we mentioned before, and then the transfer for capital and food is down 8,000. We're carrying 5,000 there for incidentals. Next slide. Okay, this is where we have taken everybody, which is kind of nice to know. Everybody on the other side of the river has ratified budgets, okay? So this takes into consideration all of the additional warrant articles that might pass in Dresden, okay? This is not worst case, maybe best case, right? Best case scenario. And so Marion Cross School direct budget would be the 8,252,538, or a change of 3.85%. Again, that includes both of the agreements that I know of at this point in time. So that's a change of an increase of $305,713. Remember that when we budget, even if we're in negotiations, we already budget for steps. Okay, we put those in when we first build the budget. So the additional changes are usually come out if there's any changes in benefits or days or money to scale or anything like that, right? So that's what the different changes would have been from the prior version, which would have had steps in and out the other runs. Dresden's assessment, the base assessment coming off of Dresden is 8,443,690, a change of almost 192,000 or 2.33%. Each of the additional articles, they have negotiations going on in the New Hampshire side, support staff negotiations and service staff negotiations. So Norwich's portion of those articles are represented here. $69,917 or just under 1%. Service staff would be just under $30,000 or just over about 1/3%. And then the middle school sports and co-curricular programming changes. That's a separate warrant article being carried in Dresden. I would strongly suggest that everybody who missed the Dresden budget hearing, go and watch the hearing. There's a lot of really good information about that article. Okay, and there's items and information posted on our website. So that, if it passes, the portion would be 61,487 or 3/4%. So overall, if everything passes Dresden, with our Marion Cross direct budget, we would be at $16,857,528. It's a change of $658,989 or just over 4%. Revenues are next, because you can't talk about expenditures without talking about what we have for offsetting revenues. Tuition income currently 2 students. Interest on investments, we're holding steady as the interest rates have been moving up and down. We may take in more money there and, you know, depending on, we don't have a crystal ball for next year, so we're hoping it stays kind of steady. We'll all find out together, I'm sure. Other local includes, rental income. And then we also have vocational aid, so that vocational aid number, I think just came out this morning. So we may need to change our Marion Cross budget by that dollar amount, as we didn't have a number budgeted there, because we didn't have it, it wasn't out from the state yet. But I'll speak to that when we go to look at the warrant articles, okay? And then we have transportation aid. We're holding that flat, that number's not out yet either, it comes off of our reports that we just finalized. Census block grant is a good number, that's up 134,000 at almost 1.3 million. Special ed extraordinary aid, I believe that number to be pretty close to true. That one should be out very shortly as well. Essential early education, we're carrying forward, and I believe that one is a steady number, and then ELL categorical aid is a steady number as well, 50,000. So overall, we have total budgeted revenues of 1.7 million, just over, or an increase of 94,000. We have this is a projection because we're still waiting for the audits to be finalized. They're a little bit behind as they are short-staffed. We inquired yesterday, today, Friday. Yeah, they got this morning. So they answered this morning, and Norwich is under review. The first one should be out. So Norwich is under review on the desk right now. It should be the first one out. This is based on our projection of where we feel we ended. That's a couple, well, actually, that's a 2-year back, but there were adjustments, right? So, yeah. So this should be pretty close to true. So that leaves us with a net assessment when you deduct that of 14,852,652. So then we carry that forward into the all important projection of tax rate page, which keep in mind, everything in salmon colored, hope it looks salmon colored to you, I don't know, flesh colored, is subject to change, okay? We ratify all this information in June. The legislature ratifies all this information, we hope, in May, but they've gone as late as the early June report. So, but we have to send in all of our information, and if there's any revenue changes, we make them then. So just keep that in mind. Right now, so we carry all that forward, okay, and then we exclude the vocational aid on the other side because that's an in and an out. It's kind of like it never hits it doesn't come in. They pay it to the Hartford Tech Center on our behalf, but we have to show it on our books, okay? So that says we're gonna have education spending of $14,913,568. That's 3.2% change increase, or just under 463,000. The long-term weighted ADM on line 5 has not been ratified. We sent it today. This is a number that I took their series of spreadsheets and I put in what I know our numbers to be true, okay? So this is my projection of what I think our numbers will be. It's gonna be close, I know. That is a 2.9% decrease over last year, because remember, this is a 2-year average, right? Okay. And so that says our adjusted, equalized spending per long-term weighted average daily membership, that's all it monitor means, is $18,530. Keep in mind that includes all our children, both sides of the river, right? Okay. It's an increase or a change of $1,096. We do have offsetting numbers there. I did not fill in the excess spending threshold because we are not subject to that. So ignore the numbers in the gray. So our per pupil figure is $18,530. The base amount yield from the Vermont AOE on December 1st was $8,553. It went down. When that yield goes down, it usually means your tax rate goes down, right? When the yield goes up, the tax rate goes up. So the yield right now is lower than it was last year by $1,340. Again, they don't usually ratify that. The legislature doesn't ratify that until May, usually at the earliest. They will probably change it and will change it and keep posting the changes as the changes come out. So the district spending adjustment is 2.1665. And then the statewide ed tax rate is still $1. So that means our equalized homestead tax, less than 21 cents, would be $1.9565. Which would be 38 cents over what it was last year. So common level of appraisal, which has been levied by the state, I have that in salmon, even though that is the number we were told by the state to use as their equalizing everybody. Okay, but we're under a reappraisal, and I don't know how that reappraisal will work into this CLA number, okay? I don't know if it'll hit this year or they'll make it wait to hit next year. So with all of that said and done, it comes out with that adjustment, because last year, remember, we had to use the common level of appraisal that we had, which was 67.57. This year it dropped to 62%, but the state adjusted it as they were equalizing those to 86.11. So that brings us in at an estimated nominal tax rate with the discount at $2.2721, or about 5.5 cents lower than the prior year. That number can change based on all the numbers in salmon above it. I expect the number in line 5, because I'm not that great at projecting how they do their job there, to change. I expect the long-term weighted average daily membership to change. I don't know if it'll go up or down, I honestly don't. I expect the base yield amount to change. Neil may have more information than I do on that. The income sensitivity percentage is at just over 3%. And then the non-residential tax rate has an increase of 2 cents. Or about 1%. I have not projected what these rates will do to folks' taxes at this point in time. I will really want to wait until we get some more certain numbers here, especially with the long-term rated ADM. So that concludes our presentation of what we think might happen. Obviously, if any of the warrant articles in Dresden don't pass, those numbers would go down. Happy to, along with Sean, but it's been a while. Answer any other questions you might have. There's also posted for everybody, I'm gonna stop sharing. There's also posted for everybody, the same information that's been handed out here, which is the abbreviated overview of the Norwich direct budget, and then the line item overview of the Norwich direct budget, along with the expanded revenues page, and the tax projection page, which we just showed you. Did I do well, ma'am? Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. I don't know how to get out of here. Here we go.
Questions? Then you're done, right?
I'm done with what I have for today. I'm sure we'll be talking about this at the next meeting, as soon as they pull up what we ratified today and give us a number.
Okay. All right, questions from the board?
Jeannie, I just want to double check something I thought I heard.
Yeah.
On slide 9, when you take a look at the estimated revenues and the assessment. I just want to confirm that you said these numbers include the agreements that we have, we've come to agreement on, but have not yet been ratified.
Haven't been totally ratified, right?
Right.
I
They
did,
assume past ratification of those agreements.
it assumes ratification on both sides after multiple conversations with both of the union chairs.
Yeah, so there's not, if I were watching this online or looking at this online, there's not like, oh, we're gonna, that this is our best estimate based on the agreements that have been negotiated at this point.
Yes,
Great, thank you.
and it's based on current census so I'll just caveat that. It's based on current census of employees with current assignments.
Yes, of course, there's risk in
Yeah.
anything based on change. Thank you, Jamie.
Any other questions? No. I'm not sure, I can't see Lily, does someone have to make sure if she has questions?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a few comments. Chair.
You're open to comments.
First off, I want to acknowledge that by my calculations, right, Jamie, I was sort of reminded as you were reviewing slide number 3, which was our budget guidelines. I just ran some quick calculations, and I actually, by my calculations, we hit our budget guidelines. And not only that, but I think we did maybe even a little bit better than
Even
that.
a
So,
little lower.
yeah, so if I take a look, if I back out, for the budget guidelines, if you back out the SAU expenses, special ed out of district tuition, I didn't even back out transportation yet, but then capital expenses and debt service. I actually come to a figure that says we were looking at a 0.01% increase.
Yeah.
Which is pretty dang close to what we wanted to have for our budget
I
guidelines.
think Sean and his team did an amazing job holding.
Which is, well, that was my segue to saying that I want to thank and congratulate, we don't congratulate until the budget passes, right?
Right,
But I want to thank the administration for working hard to make that happen. I also want to express sincere appreciation to both our teachers and our support staff negotiating teams for their willingness to work with us on the agreements that we've come to this year. Particularly to get it into this budget, right? Because that was one of the challenges that we had in past years was our negotiations sort of dragged on past the budgeting cycle, and we were left in arrears trying to make up then those costs that had already been incurred, but had not been budgeted for. So I want a huge thanks to Becky and her folks and to Liza and her team for helping us come to agreements in time to get those figures in the budget. That was important. I also want to note that, yes, the tax rate is projected right now to go down slightly. But I also want to acknowledge, like, last year was a burden. Like, last year was a 16% increase for folks. So, while I'm happy to say that it's not going up anymore, you know, certainly a decrease is welcome, but I want to acknowledge last year's pain, which was a very significant increase. But at the same time, I want to say that that tax rate is going down, driven largely by the cent discount that we've been allowed from the change in the pupil weights that went into effect last year. So were it not for that cent discount, we would be looking at a very different story here in town. So we are benefiting from that change in the law. Our long-term weighted ADM numbers, that process this year, and I'm sure that Jay and Jamie can back me up, has been horrendous. As we wait for AOE to give us a final number for long-term weighted ADM, which is a key figure in determining what that projected tax rate is going to be. It has been as high as 922, and it is now as low as 804. That dramatic of a swing in that number is ridiculous.
Scary.
Well, but it's ridiculous, right? Given the situation that we're in right now, for the AOE not to be able to provide us with meaningful numbers to get back to our own community on what the proposed tax rate is going to be is bordering, in my mind, on unacceptable, right? This is no way for a local school district to be able to effectively budget and work with our community when the data that we are being provided by the Agency of Education is so horribly wrong. And I will add to this, that long-term weighted ADM number almost at this point has nothing to do with the number of kids that we've got in the building, because that number didn't change, right? That number didn't change. And so this whole system, at least from my perspective and what the AOE is giving us, has been, it is broken, continues to be broken, and just makes our jobs so much harder in trying to figure out what is best for this community. That being said, though, thank you to everyone that worked on this, and I'm pleased with where we ended up.
Any other comments from the board?
I would make one comment.
Yes.
On the slide here, it doesn't show what the rate would be without the discount. But if you look, because I needed to fit it on the slide, on slide 10. But I would like to, to Neil's point on what it would be without that discount. I will say that if you go to the board docs, the last assessment, tax overview and assessment, does show what it would be without the discount. To your point, because it's a lot different, okay? So, and you know, and we all know that's gonna continue to go down, right? And then go, unless they change the formula completely, that's what the projection is. Okay, that was all I just wanted to point out.
Because, I mean, you show without the discount though in the gray. Right.
Big room.
Yeah, because I think without, that's what I was doing the same math. I mean, last year Neil said, I
Yeah.
think 16 was actually closer to 17% increase.
Yeah.
We started at 2.996. And I believe if you were to take out the discount, our tax rate would be at 2.51, right? So you're still talking almost 10% tax rate increase without the discount. Which again was part of the, hopefully, I mean, again, maybe.
Well, and the CLA adjust, right? So we're gonna have two dynamics coming again in the next year. I don't know if the CLA, you know, because you did a reappraisal, right? So I don't know what's gonna happen with that number, whether it'll come out to hit this budget or that's gonna hit your budget next year? That's another question, that's pending.
I mean, this year we can still have.
That might help offset some of that.
But the point being is, I think the strategy was to go in with a fairly level budget to hopefully start to, if you want to pull up a COVID term, bend the curve, right?
Right. To try to keep
To
it,
try to keep it down. I think
Kind of
to Neil's point, this was successful. Luckily, some of the revenues on the state helped as well. But I think for some people that say, well, now you went from a 17% increase to a 4% decrease, you do have to footnote that and say, yeah, you take out the discount, we're still at. I calculate 11%, but I think I might have been a lot, but. A double-digit increase without a discount. Okay,
and then your warning articles are posted in the next one.
we'll get back to this. Yes, to Neil's point, thanks, everybody, administration. As well as all those.
We've got, Lily, question.
Lily, you had a question, sorry.
I have a warning article question. Do you want me to ask it now or save it for later?
I think actually, what's our agenda here? Our agenda
That's
is,
next.
that's next, so. I guess, do you want to lead with your question, Lily?
It's my usual question every year. Neil, do we need to put the per pupil spending on the warning articles?
Jamie says no.
And I will go with what Jamie says. I don't,
It was removed last year.
it was removed last year. I think probably what we want to do is just do a review.
Double check?
Yeah, let's do a review of the laws that were passed last year to make sure that we're good with the, warning article language.
I will. It was told, we were told to remove it last year, but I don't know
I
if they
think
made.
it was removed and then coming back this year, but I may be wrong. So
Okay,
just,
thank you, Lily. I'll
can-
double check.
okay.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you. So they're pretty standard articles. The only one that is different is the Article 5. And I'll double check about that, whether it has to be put back in. If it does, I'll rerun it for you. And then these go to your town clerk for signature. The only thing I don't know, Lily, and maybe you can answer that, is, if you've got our numbering for the book yet.
I will have it after tomorrow night's select board meeting.
Okay. Cause I normally, if ours are gonna be like 40, 8, 7,
No,
9.
It's an odd numbered year, so you guys will be the first questions after the standard, shall we elect the town and school board members and all that.
Okay, sounds great.
Does anybody have any questions or discussions on the warning articles as drafted here?
We move the ratification or adoption of those to the bottom. So that you can discuss any potential changes.
Spending more time, we good? We good? All right. Okay, I think that, this concludes this portion, our budget hearing. Jamie, thanks again for everyone to do a great job, I think. Despite not knowing the ATM numbers, I think it was a relatively smooth landing. Okay, I guess at this point, we will enter into the executive session. As far as a motion to enter in, do I hear a motion? Multiple reasons or? Guess they're all personnel.
Sorry.
They're all personnel. Okay.
Motion.
Make a motion.
Move to enter executive session at 7:26 PM in accordance with Title I, Section 313, for the purpose of discussing the appointment employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee.
Took a second.
Second.
All right, go around the table, Neil,
Odell, yes.
Lisa,
Christie, yes.
Costa, yes.
Lily,
Priman, yes.
and Thomas. All right.
So
Off we
we
go.
type quick and fast typing. We go into executive session to come back out and
Live? Okay. For those watching. What was that?
Cause I was just saying, like, it felt,
Definitely.
it only ended up. You know what I mean, like, every paycheck, for like 3 paychecks, so it was like 600 dollars. And I just was like, we're such a meeting, very good. I think I've only needed some Christmas. Yeah, so, but it just might be worth.
Okay. So we return to public session at 7:52. Actually, do we want to do can we do that at order? Do we approve the FTE change first and discuss that?
You could if you want.
Okay, so why don't we start with our FTE change? This again is for the increase in FTE for the English language learning teacher. So the proposal is going to be to increase that from currently at 0.8 to, as we discussed, do you want to do a 0.9 or are we gonna do?
This
1?
year. you're going to
This, so this motion is for right now, this year.
Okay.
So just do the 0.9.
So we'll point out. So we'll do a motion to approve the ESOL teacher from 0.9 as presented.
So moved.
I'll second.
Second, Lisa. I will go around. Lily, who you want?
I'm here.
Neil?
Christie, yes?
Cost, yes.
Jarman, yes. I lost sound. Can you guys hear me?
Press them in.
I'm worried about the board club.
Me?
Yeah.
I just try to use it.
Get it. That's fun.
Oh, yeah, that'd be fun. Well, Bob Seger worked my mystery about like this.
It's worse than that. We don't have the melody. And I like, sleep.
What was that?
You must see it, patients too, although I guess you can see patients. The
Oh, I
stuff
tried-
that the families are,
Yeah, no.
it is. I just, I'm blown away. Have you had Lily on there, or should I call her?
Lily dropped off.
She actually just texted me, so I'm gonna call.
Rhett is still with us. Lily is coming back in. Rhett says, yeah, I can hear. That's because I turned on my my microphone and camera. So you're just getting me, Rhett.
Okay, yeah, we lost the owls, Lily. The owls are gone. Hopefully not. Okay.
Yeah. Sort of point it in this general direction.
Okay. All right, so we're on to, we've approved the FTE change, we approved the leave of absence extension. Now we're gonna do our last one, which is approving the budget and the warning articles. And just so everyone's clear, what we are gonna do is we're making a minor adjustment to the amount to account for one FTE for the
Changes, ESL.
changes in the ESL. So we're gonna increase that in budget, a one FTE, just given the fact that we just bumped it to a 0.9.
Yep.
For this year. Okay,
Want me to try to give it a go with a motion?
Neil's gonna give it a go at the motion.
All right, move to approve the 2025-26 Norwich School District warrant articles, including the Norwich school budget in the amount of $8,274,079, and to further authorize the administration to make any corrections necessary to comply with state statutes.
Okay, do I have a
I
second?
will second.
Lisa, around the table.
Odell, yes.
Christie, yes.
Costa, yes.
Tryman, yes.
All right, and Palm, yes, so that is unanimous. Okay. And we need to, do we have to do the warning articles too? That's
Nope,
another
that I
motion.
included that
You
in the
include
motion.
that with your, with what you said to make the changes.
Yeah.
Okay. I believe that now ends our meeting. So our next meeting is on February 5th on Wednesday. Please give me any additional comments. I think one thing, just so everyone's aware, I don't think there's anyone really on, but at least for other board members, if you do hear in the community or can talk it up, we are looking for a board member to replace Lily. And it's starting to get a little bit critical.
What's the deadline for the?
Lily, the
signatures?
deadline for the signatures is,
Monday night at 5 p.m. You need 30 signatures from registered Norwich voters along with a consent of candidate form. You can download them all from the Town of Norwich website.
So this Monday before the February 5th meeting.
Monday, the 27th.
Okay. I was gonna suggest that we do a topic on February 5th that somehow encouraged people to apply, like did a little, you know, how we
But
used to
bearing
have
in mind that if no one applies to run, you can always
for becoming a school board member.
run a write-in campaign, and as long as they get 30 votes, they are considered the winner.
Mr. Chairman, a point of
Okay.
personal privilege. There is no replacing Little Training. Just want to make that. And with that, I make a motion to adjourn.
all right, second. All right, we're on the table.
Odell, yes.
Christie, yes.
Costa, yes.
Tryman, yes.
All right, Palm, yes. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you all, 8:08.